And her, you can sit there.
She have one mobile. She doesn't.
Yeah. She can move up though.
Babu, you come this.
I don't want her to sit by the gate. Here, sit up. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. We'd like to welcome everyone to our Sunday Krishna book reading to Srila Prabhupada. And for all of you online, we give you a special welcome. And as usual, we offer our respectful obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Namam Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskacha Deshatarane. And to each other, Vanchakalpa Durubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so we're still on the prayers by the personified Vedas, one of the longest chapters in Krishna book. It's so nectar. And if you have this Krishna book, we're on page 864. But if you don't have that particular Krishna book, you can go towards the end and find the paragraph that begins with, "In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says." So we hope you can catch up, and you can note the subtitles at the bottom of the screen, and that will help you to hear Krishna book. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that a devotee who knows him perfectly is very dear to him. 4 kinds of pious men take to devotional service. If a pious man is in distress, he approaches the Lord for mitigation of his distress. If a pious man is in need of material help, he prays to the Lord for such help. If a pious man is actually inquisitive about the science of God, he approaches the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Similarly, a pious man who is simply eager to know the science of Krishna also approaches the Supreme Lord. Out of these 4 classes of men, the last is praised by Krishna himself in the Bhagavad Gita. A person who tries to understand Krishna with full knowledge and devotion by following in the footsteps of previous acharyas, conversant with scientific knowledge of the Supreme Lord, is praiseworthy. Such a devotee can understand that all conditions of life, favorable and unfavorable, are created by the supreme will of the Lord. And when he has fully surrendered unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, he does not care whether his condition of life is favorable or unfavorable.
A devotee takes even an unfavorable condition to be the special favor of the personality of Godhead. Actually, there are no unfavorable conditions for a devotee. Knowing that everything is coming by the will of the Lord, he sees every condition as favorable. And in any condition of life, he is simply enthusiastic to discharge his devotional service. This devotional attitude is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. A devotee is never distressed in reverse conditions of life, nor is he overjoyed in favorable conditions. In the higher stages of devotional service, a devotee is not even concerned with the list of do's and do-nots. Such a position can be maintained only by following in the footsteps of the acharyas. Because a pure devotee follows in the footsteps of the acharyas, any action he performs to discharge devotional service should be understood to be on the transcendental platform. Lord Krishna, therefore, instructs us that an acharya is above criticism. A neophyte devotee should not consider himself to be on the same plane as the acharya. It should be accepted that the acharyas are on the same platform as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, neither Krishna nor his representative, Acharya, should be subjected to any adverse criticism by the neophyte devotees.
The personified Vedas thus worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in different ways. Offering worship to the Supreme Lord by praying means remembering His transcendental qualities, pastimes, and activities. But the Lord's pastime and qualities are unlimited. It is not possible for us to remember all the qualities of the Lord. Therefore, the personified Vedas worship to the best of their ability, and at the end, they spoke as follows. Dear Lord, although Lord Brahma, the predominating deity of the highest planet, Brahmaloka, and King Indra, the predominating demigod of the heavenly planets, as well as the predominating deities of such planets as the sun and the moon, are all very confidential directors of this material world. They have very little knowledge about you. Then what can ordinary human being and mental speculators know of you? It is not possible for anyone to enumerate the unlimited transcendental qualities of your Lordship. No one, not even the mental speculators and the demigods in higher planetary systems, is actually able to estimate the length and breadth of your form and characteristics. We think that even your Lordship doesn't have complete knowledge of your transcendental qualities. The reason is that you are unlimited. Although it is not befitting to say that you do not know yourself, it is practical to understand that because you have unlimited qualities and energies, and because your knowledge is also unlimited, there is unlimited competition between your knowledge and your expansion of energies.
The idea is that because God and His knowledge are both unlimited, as soon as God is cognizant of some of His energies, He preserves that He has still more energy. In this way, both His energy and His knowledge increase. Because both of them are unlimited, there is no end to the energies and no end to the knowledge with which to understand the energy. God is undoubtedly omnipotent, but the personified Veda says that even God Himself does not know the full extent of His energy. This does not mean that God is not omnipotent. When an actual fact is unknown to a certain person, that is called ignorance or lack of knowledge. This is not applicable to God. However, because He knows Himself perfectly, but still, as His energy and activities increase, He also increases His knowledge to understand them. Both are increasing unlimitedly, and there is no end to it. In that sense, it can be said that even God Himself does not know limit of His energy and qualities.
How God is unlimited in His expansions of energies and activities can be roughly calculated by any sane and sober living entity. It is said in the Vedic literature that innumerable universes issue forth when Mahavishnu exhales in his Yog Nidra, and that innumerable universes enter his body. And when he inhales, we have to imagine that these universes, which according to our limited knowledge are expanded unlimitedly, are so great that the gross and subtle ingredients, the five elements of the cosmic manifestation, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, along with the total material energy and false ego, are not only within the universe but cover the universe in 7 layers, each layer 10 times bigger than the previous one. In this way, each and every universe is very securely packed, and there are numberless universes. All these universes float within the innumerable pores of the transcendental body of Mahavishnu. It is stated that just as the atoms and particles of dust are floating within the air along with the birds and their number cannot be calculated, so innumerable universes are floating within the pores of the transcendental body of the Lord. For this reason, the Vedas says that the God is beyond the grasp of our knowledge. Avan Mansa Gojara. To understand the length and breadth of God is beyond the jurisdiction of our mental speculation. Therefore, a person who is actually learned and the sane does not claim to be God, but tries to understand God, making distinctions between spirit and matter. By such careful discrimination, one can clearly understand that the Supreme Soul is transcendental to both the superior and inferior energies, although he has a direct connection with the both. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna explains that although everything is resting on his energy, he is different or separate from the energy.
Nature and the living entities are sometimes designated as Prakriti and Purusha respectively. The whole cosmic manifestation is an amalgamation of Prakriti and Purusha. Nature is the ingredient cause and the living entities are the effective cause. These two causes combine together and the effect is this cosmic manifestation. When one is fortunate enough to come to the right conclusion about this cosmic manifestation and everything going on within it, he knows it to be caused directly and indirectly by the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. It is concluded in the Brahma Samhita, therefore, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govindaha Sarva Karana Karanam. After much deliberation and consideration, when one has attained the perfection of knowledge, one comes to the conclusion that Krishna or God is the original cause of all causes. Instead of speculating about the measurement of God, whether he is so long or so wide, or falsely philosophizing, one should come to the conclusion of the Brahma Samhita. Krishna or God is Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. That is the perfection of knowledge.
Thus, the Veda Stuti or the prayers offered by the personified Vedas to Garbhodakshay Vishnu were first narrated in disciplic succession by Sanadana to his brothers, all of whom were born of Brahma at the beginning of the universe. The four Kumaras were the first born sons of Brahma. Therefore, they are known as Purvajata. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the Parampara system or the disciplic succession begins with Krishna himself. Similarly, here in the prayers of personified Vedas, it is to be understood that the Parampara system begins with the personality of Godhead Narayana Rishi. We should remember that this Veda Stuti is narrated by Kumara Sanadana, and the narration is repeated by Narayana Rishi in Badrikashrama. Narayana Rishi is the incarnation of Krishna for showing us the path of self-realization by undergoing severe austerities. In this age, Lord Chaitanya demonstrated the path of pure devotional service by putting himself in the role of a pure devotee. Similarly, in the past, Lord Narayana Rishi was an incarnation of Krishna who performed severe austerities in the Himalayan ranges. Shri Narada Muni was hearing from him. So, in the statement given by Narayana Rishi to Narada Muni, as narrated by Kumara Sanandana in the form of the Veda Stuti, it is understood that God is the one supreme and that all others are his servants.
In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is stated, Ekale Ishvara Krishna. Krishna is the only supreme God. Are Sabhivritya. All others are his servants. Yare Yache Nachaya Se Tache Kare Nritya. The Supreme Lord as he desires, is engaging all the living entities in the different activities, and thus they exhibit their different talents and tendencies. This Veda Stuti is thus the original instruction regarding the relationship existing between the living entity and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The highest platform of the realization for the living entity is the attainment of the devotional service. One cannot be engaged in devotional life or Krishna consciousness unless one is fully free from the material contamination. Narayana Rishi informed Narada Muni that the essence of all the Vedas and the Vedic scriptures, namely the four Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas, and the Vedanta Sutra, is to render transcendental loving service to the Lord. In this connection, Narayana Rishi has used one particular word, rasa. In devotional service, this rasa is the medium or the basic principle for the exchange of dealings between the Lord and the living entity. Rasa is also described in the Vedas, Rasovasa. The Supreme Lord is the reservoir of all pleasure. All the Vedic scriptures, including the Puranas, the Vedas, and the Upanishads, are the Vedanta Sutra, teach the living entities how to attain the stage of rasa. The Bhagavatam also says that the statements in the Mahapurana, Srimad Bhagavatam, constitute the essence, rasa, of all Vedic literature, Nigama Kalpa Taror Galitam Phalam. The Bhagavatam is the essence of all the ripened fruits of the tree of the Vedic literature.
We understand that with the blessing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there issued forth the four Vedas, namely the Rig Veda, the Yajur Veda, the Sama Veda, and the Atharva Veda, and also the histories like the Mahabharata and all the Puranas, which are considered to be history of the world. The Vedic histories like the Purana and Mahabharata are called the fifth Veda. The 28 verses of the Veda Stuti are to be considered the essence of all Vedic knowledge. The four Kumaras and all other authorized sages know perfectly that devotional service in Krishna consciousness is the essence of all Vedic literatures, and they preach this on different planets, traveling in outer space. It is stated herein that such sages, including Narada Muni, hardly ever travel on land. They perpetually travel in space.
Sages like Narada and the Kumaras travel throughout the universe to educate the conditioned souls that their business in the world is not that of sense gratification, but of reinstating themselves in their original position of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is stated in several places that the living entities are like sparks of the fire, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is like the fire itself. If the sparks somehow or another fall out of the fire, they lose their natural illumination. Thus, it is ascertained that the living entities come into this material world exactly as sparks fall from a great fire. The living entity wants to imitate Krishna and tries to lord it over material nature in order to enjoy sense gratification. Thus, he forgets his original position and his illuminating power. His spiritual identity is extinguished. However, if a living entity takes to Krishna consciousness, he is reinstated in his original position. To preach this process of devotional service, sages and saints like Narada and the Kumaras travel all over the universe, educating people and increasing their disciples. Their aim is that all the conditioned souls may be educated to revive their original consciousness or Krishna consciousness, and thus gain relief from the miserable conditions of material life.
Sri Narada Muni is a Naistika brahmachari. There are 4 types of brahmacharis. The first is called Savitra, which refers to a brahmachari who, after initiation and the sacred thread ceremony, must observe at least 3 days of celibacy. The next is called Prajapatiya, which refers to a brahmachari who strictly observes celibacy for at least 1 year after initiation. The next is called Brahma Brahmachari, which refers to a brahmachari who observes celibacy from the time of initiation up to the time of the completion of his study of the Vedic literature. The next stage is called Naistika, which refers to a brahmachari who is celibate throughout his whole life. Out of these, the first 3 are Upakarvana, which means that the brahmachari can marry later after the brahmachari period is over. The Naistika brahmachari, however, is completely reluctant to have any sex life. Therefore, the Kumaras and Narada are known as Naistika brahmacharis. Such brahmacharis are called Veera Vrata because their vow of celibacy is heroic as the vows of the Kshatriya. The brahmachari system of life is especially advantageous in that it increases the power of memory and determination. It is specifically mentioned in this connection that because Narada was a Naistika brahmachari, he could remember whatever he heard from his spiritual master and would never forget it. One who remembers everything perpetually is called a Shrutidhara. A Shrutidhara brahmachari can repeat verbatim all that he has heard, without notes and without reference to books. The great sage Narada has this qualification, and therefore, having taken instruction from Narayana Rishi, he is engaged in propagating the philosophy of devotional service all over the world. Because such great sages can remember everything, they are thoughtful, self-realized, and completely fixed in the service of the Lord.
Thus, the great sage Narada, after hearing from his spiritual master Narayana Rishi, became completely realized. He became established in the truth, and he became so happy that he offered praise to Narayana Rishi. Narada Muni addressed Narayana Rishi as an incarnation of Krishna and specifically addressed him as the supreme well-wisher of the conditioned souls. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that Lord Krishna descends in every millennium just to give protection to his devotees and to annihilate the non-devotees. Narayana Rishi, being an incarnation of Krishna, is also addressed as the well-wisher of the conditioned souls. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, everyone should know that there is no well-wisher like Krishna. Everyone should understand that Lord Krishna is the supreme well-wisher of everyone and should take shelter of him. In this way, one can become completely confident and satisfied, knowing that he has someone who is able to give him all protection. Krishna himself, his incarnation and his plenary expansion are all supreme well-wishers of the conditioned souls. But Krishna is the well-wisher even of the demons, for he gave salvation to all the demons who came to kill him in Vrindavan. Therefore, Krishna's welfare activities are absolute, for whether he annihilates a demon or gives protection to a devotee, the result of his activities is one and the same. It is said that the demon Putana was elevated to the same position as that of Krishna's mother. When Krishna kills a demon, the demon is supremely benefited, as much as a pure devotee is benefited by always being protected by the Lord.
Narad Muni, after offering respect to Narayan Rishi, went to ashram of Vyasadeva, his disciple. Being properly received by Vyasadeva in his ashram and seated very comfortably, Narad Muni narrated the entire story of what he had heard from Narayan Rishi. In this way, Sukadeva Goswami informed Parishad Maharaj of the answers of his question regarding essence of Vedic knowledge and what is considered to be the ultimate goal in the Vedas. The supreme goal of life is to achieve the transcendental blessing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. and thus become engaged in the loving service of the Lord. One should follow in the footsteps of Sukdev Goswami and all the other Vaishnava in disciple succession and should pay respect, obeisances unto the Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of God and Hari. The fourth secret of Vaishnava disciple succession, namely Madhava Sampradaya, Ramanujana Sampradaya, the Vishnu Swami Sampradaya, and the Nimbarka Sampradaya, in the presence of the all Vedic conclusion, agree that one should surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
The Vedic literature is divided into two parts, the Shrutis and the Smritis. The Shrutis are the four Vedas, Rig, Sam, Atharv and Yajur, and the Upanishads, and the Smritis are the Puranas and the Itihas like the Mahabharata, which includes the Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion of all these is that one should know Shri Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the Param Purusha, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, under whose superintendence material nature works. For creation, maintenance, and annihilation, the Supreme Lord incarnates into the three, Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva, after manifesting the material cosmos. All of these take charge of the three modes of material nature, but ultimate direction is in the hand of Lord Vishnu. The complete activities of material nature under the three modes are conducted under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Maya Adhakshen, and in the Vedas, Sa Ekishta.
The atheistic Sankhyaite philosophers will of course offer their arguments that the material cosmic manifestation is due to Prakriti and Purusha, material nature and the living entity, or the material cause and the effective cause. But Krishna is the cause of all causes. He is the cause of both the material and the effective causes. Prakriti and Purusha are not the ultimate cause. Superficially, it appears that a child is born due to the combination of the father and mother, but the ultimate cause of both the father and the mother is Krishna. He is therefore the original cause or the cause of all causes as confirmed in the Brahma Samhita.
Both the Supreme Lord and the living entities enter into the material nature. The Supreme Lord Krishna, by one of his plenary expansions, manifests as Karunadakshay Vishnu, Mahavishnu, the gigantic Vishnu form lying in the causal ocean. Then from the gigantic form of Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu expands and enters into every universe. From him, Brahma, Vishnu and Shiva expand. Vishnu as Kshirodakshay enters into the hearts of all living entities, as well as into all material elements, including the atom. The Brahma Samhita says, Andantarastata Paramanu Chayantarastatam. The Lord is within this universe and also within every atom.
The living entity has a small material body taken in various species and forms, and similarly, the whole universe is but the material body of Supreme Personality of Godhead. This body is described in the Shastra as Virata Rupa. As the individual living entity maintains his particular body, the Supreme Personality of Godhead maintains the whole cosmic creation. Entering within it, as soon as the individual living entity leaves the material body, the body is immediately annihilated, and similarly, as soon as Lord Vishnu leaves the cosmic manifestation, everything is annihilated. Therefore, only when the individual living entity surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the liberation from the material existence possible. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, Maev ye prapaddante mayam etam tarantite. Surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead and nothing else is therefore the cause of liberation. How the living entity becomes liberated from the modes of material nature after surrendering unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is illustrated by the example of a sleeping man within a room. When a man is sleeping, everyone sees that he is present within the room, but actually the man himself is not within that body. For while sleeping, a man forgets his bodily existence, although others may see that his body is present. Similarly, a liberated person engaged in devotional service to the Lord may be seen by the others to be engaged in the household duties of the material world. But since he engaged in the household duties of the material world, his consciousness is fixed in Krishna. He does not live within this world. His engagements are different, exactly as the sleeping man's engagements are different from the bodily engagements. It is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita that a devotee engaged full time in the transcendental loving service of the Lord has already surpassed the influence of the three modes of material nature. He is already situated on the Brahma platform and it is in the transcendental realm, although he appears to be living within the body or within the material world.
In this connection, Srila Rupa Goswami states in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that the person whose only desire is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead may be situated in any condition in the material world, but he is to be understood as Jivanamukta. That is to say, he is to be considered liberated while living within the body or the material world. The conclusion, therefore, is that a person fully engaged in Krishna consciousness is a liberated person. Such a person actually has nothing to do with this material body or the material world. Those who are not in Krishna consciousness are called karmis and jnanis, and they hover on the bodily and mental platforms and thus are not liberated. This situation is called kaivalya nirasta yoni. But a person situated on the transcendental platform is freed from the repetition of birth and death. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter. Simply by knowing the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, one becomes free from the chains of the repetition of birth and death. And after quitting his present body, he goes back home, back to Godhead. This is the conclusion of all the Vedas. Thus, after understanding the prayers offered by the personified Vedas, one should surrender unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 87th chapter of Krishna, prayers by the personified Vedas.
Chapter 88, The Deliverance of Lord Shiva. As a great devotee of Krishna, King Parikshit was already liberated, but for clarification, he was asking various questions of Sukadeva Goswami. In the previous chapter, King Parikshit's question was, what is the ultimate goal of the Vedas? And Sukadeva Goswami explained the matter, giving authoritative descriptions from the disciplic succession from Sanandan down to Narayan Rishi, Narada, Vyasadeva, and Sukadeva himself. The conclusion was that devotional service or bhakti is the ultimate goal of the Vedas. A neophyte devotee may question if the ultimate goal of life or the conclusion of the Vedas is to elevate oneself to the platform of devotional service, then why is it observed that a devotee of Lord Vishnu is generally not very prosperous materially, whereas a devotee of Lord Shiva is found to be very opulent? In order to clarify this matter, Parikshit Maharaj asked Sukadeva Goswami, My dear Sukadeva Goswami, it is generally found that those who engage in the worship of Lord Shiva whether in human, demoniac, or demigod society, become materially very opulent, although Lord Shiva himself lives just like a poverty-stricken person. On the other hand, the devotees of Lord Vishnu, who is the controller of the goddess of fortune, do not appear very prosperous, and sometimes they are even found living without any material opulence at all. Lord Shiva lives underneath a tree or in the snow of the Himalayan mountains. He does not even construct a house for himself, but still the worshippers of Lord Shiva are very rich. Krishna, or Lord Vishnu, however, lives very opulently, whether in Vaikuntha or in the material world, but his devotees appear poverty-stricken. Why is this so?
The big question. Maharaj Parikshit's question is very intelligent. The two classes of devotees, namely the devotees of Lord Shiva and the devotees of Lord Vishnu, are always in disagreement. Even today in India, these two classes of devotees still criticize each other, and especially in South India, followers of Ramanujacharya and the followers of Sankaracharya hold occasional meetings for understanding the Vedic conclusion. Generally, the followers of Ramanujacharya come out victorious in such meetings. So, Parikshit Maharaj wanted to clarify the situation by asking this question of Shukadeva Goswami, that Lord Shiva lives as a poor man, although his devotees appear very opulent, whereas Lord Krishna or Lord Vishnu is always opulent, and yet his devotees appear poverty-stricken, is a situation which appears contradictory and puzzling to a discriminating person.
Replying to King Parikshit's inquiry, Sukadeva Goswami said that Lord Shiva is the master of the material energy. The material energy is represented by Goddess Durga, and because Lord Shiva happens to be her husband, Goddess Durga is completely under his subjugation. Thus, Lord Shiva is understood to be the master of the material energy. The material energy is manifested in three qualities, namely goodness, passion, and ignorance, and therefore, Lord Shiva is the master of these three qualities. Although he is in the association with these qualities for the benefit of the conditioned soul, Lord Shiva is their director and is not affected. In other words, although the conditioned soul is affected by the three qualities, Lord Shiva, being their master, is not.
From the statement of Shukadeva Goswami, we can understand that the effects of worshipping different demigods are not as some less intelligent persons suppose, the same as the effects of the worshipping Lord Vishnu. Shukadeva Goswami clearly states that by worshipping Lord Shiva, one achieves one reward, whereas by worshipping Lord Vishnu, one achieves a different reward. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who worship the different demigods achieve the desired results the respective demigods can reward. Similarly, those who worship the material energy receive the suitable reward for such activities, and those who worship the Pitras receive similar results. But those who engage in devotional service or in worship of the Supreme Lord, Vishnu or Krishna, go to the Vaikuntha planets or Krishna Loka. One cannot approach the transcendental region or Paravyama, the spiritual sky, by worshipping Lord Shiva or Brahma or any other demigod.
Since this material world is product of the three qualities of material nature, all varieties of manifestation come from those three qualities. With the aid of materialist science, modern civilization has created many machines and comforts, yet they are only varieties of interactions of the three material qualities. Although the devotee of Lord Shiva are able to attain obtain many and material acquisition, we should know that such devotees are simply collecting product manufactured by the three qualities. The three qualities are again subdivided into 16, namely the 10 senses, the 5 working senses and the 5 knowledge acquiring senses, the mind and the 5 elements, earth, water, air, fire and sky. These 16 items are extent of the three qualities. Material happiness or opulences means gratification of the senses, especially the genital, the tongue, and the mind. By exercising our mind, we create many pleasurable things just for enjoyment by the genital and the tongue. The opulences of a person within this material world is estimated in terms of this exercise of genital and tongue, or in other words, how well he is able to utilize his sexual capacity and how well he is able to satisfy his fascination taste by eating palatable dishes. Material advancement or civilization necessity creating object of enjoyment by the material consumption just to become happy, and on the base of this two principal pleasure for genital and pleasure of the tongue, here lies the answer to the King Parishit question to Sukdev Goswami as to why the worship of Lord Shiva are so opulent.
The devotees of Lord Shiva are opulent only in terms of the material qualities. Factually, such so-called advancement of civilization is the cause of entanglement in material existence. It is actually not advancement but degradation. The conclusion is that because Lord Shiva is the master of the three qualities, his devotees are given things manufactured by the interactions of these qualities for the satisfaction of the senses. In the Bhagavad Gita, however, we get instructions from Lord Krishna that one has to transcend this qualitative existence. Nistraya Guno Bhav Arjuna. The mission of human life is to become transcendental to the three qualities. Unless one is Nistraya Guna, he cannot get free from material entanglement. In other words, favors received from Lord Shiva are not actually beneficial to the conditioned soul, although materially such facilities seem opulent.
Shukadev Goswami continued, the Supreme Hari is transcendental to the three qualities of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord states that anyone who surrenders unto him surpasses the control of the three qualities of material nature. Therefore, since Hari's devotees are transcendental to the control of the three material qualities, certainly he himself is transcendental. In Srimad Bhagavatam, it is therefore stated that Hari or Krishna is the original Supreme Personality. There are two kinds of prakritis or potencies, namely the internal potency and the external potency, and Krishna is the overlord of both. He is Sarvadrika, or the overseer of all the actions of the internal and external potencies, and he is also described as Upadrashta, the supreme advisor. Because he is the supreme advisor, he is above all the demigods who merely follow the directions of the supreme advisor. As such, if one directly follows the instructions of the Supreme Lord as inculcated in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, then one gradually becomes nirguna, or above the interactions of the material qualities. To be nirguna means to be bereft of material opulences, because, as we have explained, material opulence means an increase of the actions and reactions of the three material qualities. By worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, instead of being puffed up with material opulences, one becomes enriched with spiritual advancement of knowledge in Krishna consciousness. To become nirguna means to achieve eternal peace, fearlessness, religiousness, knowledge, and renunciation. All these are symptoms of becoming free from the contamination of the material qualities.
Sukadeva Goswami, in answering Parikshit Maharaj's question, went on to cite a historical instance regarding Parikshit Maharaj's grandfather, King Yudhishthira. He said that after finishing the Ashwamedha sacrifice in the great sacrificial arena, King Yudhishthira, in the presence of great authorities, inquired from Lord Krishna on what very same point. How it is that the devotees of the Lord Shiva became materially opulent, whereas the devotees of Lord Vishnu do not. Sukadeva Goswami specially referred to the king Yudhishthira as your grandfather, so that Maharaj Parikshit would be encouraged to think that he was related to Krishna and that his grandfathers were intimately connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Difficult to hold. Although by nature Krishna is always very satisfied, when Maharaj Yudhishthira asked the question, the Lord became even more satisfied because this question and its answer would bear a great meaning for the entire Krishna conscious society. Whenever Lord Krishna speaks about something to a specific devotee, it is meant not only for that devotee but for all devotees, and indeed for the entire human society. Instructions by the Supreme Personality of Godhead are important even to Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and the other demigod. And if one does not take advantage of such instructions of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who descends within this world for the benefit of all living entity, he is certainly very unfortunate.
Lord Krishna answered the question of Maharaj Yudhishthir as follows. If I specially favor a devotee and specially wish to care for him, the first thing I do is take away his riches. When the devotee becomes a penniless pauper or is put into a comparatively poverty-stricken position, his relatives and family members no longer take interest in him. And in most cases, they give up their connection with him. The devotee then becomes doubly unhappy. First of all, the devotee becomes unhappy because his riches have been taken away by Krishna. And he is made even more unhappy when his relatives desert him because of his poverty. We should note, however, that when a devotee falls into a miserable condition in this way, it is not due to past impious activities known as karma phala. The poverty of the devotee is a creation of the personality of Godhead. Similarly, when a devotee becomes materially opulent, that is also not due to his pious activities. In either case, whether the devotee becomes poorer or richer, the arrangement is made by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This arrangement is especially made by Krishna for his devotee, just to make him completely dependent upon him and to free him from all material obligations.
Concentrate his energies, mind and body, everything, for the service of the Lord, and that is pure devotional service. In the Narada Pancharatra, it is therefore explained, Sarvopadi Vinimuktam, which means being freed from all designations. Works performed for family, society, community, nation, or humanity are all designated. I belong to this society. I belong to this community. I belong to this nation. I belong to this species of life. Such identities are all merely designations. when by the grace of the Lord a devotee is freed from all designations, his devotional service is actually Naishkamya. Jnanis are very much attracted by the position of Naishkamya, in which one's actions no longer have any material effect. The devotee's activities are freed from material effects, and so these activities are no longer in the category of karma palam or fruitive activities. As explained before by the personified Vedas, the happiness and distress of the devotee are produced by the personality of Godhead, and the devotee therefore does not care whether he is in happiness or in distress. He goes on with his duties in executing devotional service. Although his behavior seems to be subject to the actions and reactions of fruitive activities, he is actually freed from the results of action.
It may be questioned why a devotee is put into such tribulation by the personality of Godhead. The answer is that this kind of arrangement by the Lord is just like a father sometimes becoming unkind to his sons. Because the devotee is a surrendered soul and is taken charge of by the Supreme Lord, whatever condition of life the Lord puts him in, whether one of distress or of happiness, it is to be understood that behind this arrangement is a large plan designed by the personality of Godhead. For example, Lord Krishna put the Pandavas into a distressed condition so acute that even Grandfather Bhishma could not comprehend how such distress could occur. He lamented that although the whole Pandava family was headed by King Yudhisthira, the most pious king, and protected by the two great warriors, Bhima and Arjuna, and although above all the Pandavas were all intimate friends and relatives of Lord Krishna, they still had to undergo such tribulations. Later, however, it was proved that this was planned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as part of his great mission to annihilate the miscreants and protect the devotees.
Another question may be raised. What is the difference between a devotee and a common man? Since both are put into different kinds of happy and distressful condition, the devotee by the arrangement of the personality of Godhead, and the common man as a result of his past deeds. How is a devotee any better than the ordinary karmi? The answer is that the karmis and the devotees are not on the same level. In whatever condition of life the karmi may be, he continues in the cycle of birth and death because the seed of karma or fruitive activity is there, and it fructifies whenever there is an opportunity. By the law of karma, a common man is perpetually entangled in repeated birth and death, whereas a devotee's distress and happiness, not being under the laws of karma, are part of a temporary arrangement by the Supreme Lord, which does not entangle the devotee. Such an arrangement is made by the Lord only to serve a temporary purpose. If a karmi performs auspicious acts, he is elevated to the heavenly planet, and if he acts impiously, he is put into the hellish condition. But whether a devotee acts in so-called pious or impious manner, he is neither elevated nor degraded, but is transferred to the spiritual kingdom. Therefore, a devotee's happiness and distress and a karmi's happiness and distress are not on the same level. This fact is corroborated by a speech by Yamaraj to his servants in connection with the liberation of Ajamila. Yamaraj advised his followers that only persons who have never uttered the holy name of the Lord or remembered the form, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord should be approached by his watch gods. Yamaraj also advised his servants never to approach the devotees. On the contrary, he instructed his messengers that if they meet a devotee, they should offer their respectful obeisances. So there is no question of a devotee being promoted or degraded within this material world, as there is a gulf of difference between the punishment awarded by the mother and the punishment awarded by an enemy. So, a devotee's distress is not the same as the distress of a common karmi.
Here, another question may be raised. If the Supreme Lord is all powerful, why should he try to reform his devotees by putting him in distress? The answer is that when the Supreme Personality of Godhead puts his devotees in distress, it is not without purpose. Sometimes the purpose is that in distress, a devotee's feelings of attachment to Krishna are magnified. For example, when Krishna, before leaving the capital of Pandavas for his home, asked Kunti Devi for permission to leave, she said, "My dear Krishna, in our distress, you were always present with us. Now, because we have been elevated to a royal position, you are leaving us. I would therefore prefer to live in distress than to lose you." When a devotee is put into a situation of distress, his devotional activities are accelerated. Therefore, to show special favor to a devotee, the Lord sometimes puts him into distress. Besides that, it is stated that the sweetness of happiness is sweeter to those who have tasted bitterness. The Supreme Lord descends to this material world just to protect his devotees from distress. In other words, if devotees were not in a distressed condition, the Lord would not have come down. As for his killing the demons or miscreants, this can be easily done by his various energies. But as many asuras are killed by his external energy, Goddess Durga, therefore the Lord doesn't need to come down personally to kill such devotees. But when his devotees is in distress, he must come. Lord Nrsimhadev appeared not in order to kill Hiranyakashipu, but to save Prahlad and to give him blessings. In other words, because Prahlad Maharaj was put into a very great distress, the Lord appeared.
When after dense darkness night there is finally sunrise in the morning, it is very pleasant. When there is scorching heat, cold water is very pleasant. And when there is a freezing winter, hot water is very pleasant. Similarly, a devotee, after experiencing the distress of the material world, releases the spiritual happiness awarded by the Lord. His position is still more pleasant and enjoyable. The Lord continued, "When my devotee is bereft of all material riches and distressed by his relative, deserted by his relatives, friends and family members, because he has no one to look after him, he completely takes shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord." Sri Narottam Das Thakur has sung in this connection, "My dear Lord, O son of Nanda Maharaj, you are now standing before me with the Srimati Radharani, the daughter of King Vishabhanu. I am now surrendered unto you. Please accept me. Please do not kick me away. I have no shelter other than you."
When a devotee is thus put into the so-called miserable condition and bereft of riches and family, he tries to revive his original position of material opulence. But although he tries again and again, Krishna again and again takes away all his resources. Thus he finally becomes disappointed in material activities, and in that stage of frustration in all endeavors, he can fully surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such persons are advised by the Lord from within to associate with the devotees. By associating with the devotees, they naturally become inclined to render service to the to the personality of Godhead, and they immediately get all facilities from the Lord to advance in Krishna consciousness. The non-devotees, however, are very careful about preserving their material condition of life. Generally, therefore, such non-devotees do not come to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but worship Lord Shiva or other demigods for immediate material profit. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, therefore, kan kanstha karnam siddhim yajanta iha devata. The karmis, in order to achieve success within this material world, worship the various demigods. It is also stated by Lord Krishna that those who worship the demigods are not mature in their intelligence. The devotees of Supreme Personality of Godhead, therefore, because of their strong attachment for Him, do not foolishly go to the demigods.
Should I continue? Okay. Lord Krishna said to King Yudhishthira, "My devotee is not deterred by any adverse conditions of life. He always remains firm and steady. Therefore, I give myself to him and I favor him so that he can achieve the highest success of life." The mercy bestowed upon the tried devotee by the Supreme Personality is described as Brahma, which indicates that the greatness of that mercy can be compared only to the all-pervasive greatness of Brahman. Brahma means unlimitedly great and unlimitedly expanding. That mercy is also described as Paramam, for it has no comparison with this material world, and it is also called Suksham, very fine. Not only is the Lord's mercy upon the tried devotee great and unlimitedly expansive, but it is of the finest quality of transcendental love between the devotee and the Lord. Such mercy is further described as Chin Matram, completely spiritual. The use of the word Matram indicates absolute spirituality with no tinge of material qualities. That mercy is also called Sat, eternal, and Anantakam, unlimited. Since the devotee of the Lord is awarded such unlimited spiritual benefit, why should he worship the demigods? A devotee of Krishna does not worship Lord Shiva or Brahma or any other subordinate demigod. He completely devotes himself to the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So that concludes our 1-hour reading of Krishna book to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, we would like to thank you for allowing us to come and read your Krishna book to you. And as always, let us conclude by offering our humble obeisances to Srila Prabhupada and to each other. Nama Om Vishnuvadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvasesha Sunyavadi Paskachade Shatarane. And to each other, Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Krishna Book, Jai Shri Gauda Bhaktivinoda. See you next Sunday for Krishna book reading to Prabhupada. And I have my